Hey, welcome back to my channel. Got everything on the bench here. We're going to make a bounce plug for the GoPro 6. This is a naked GoPro 6. And this is the previous bounce plug that I made. We had a little wreck and got torn up. So we're going to make a new one for my friend. And he also requested to get one for a naked GoPro 8. So if you want to know how to do this, I'm going to try to do a quick tip video, but if you want to see like a long version, a schematic drawn out and like a whole theory of why, check this video out. Here's the thumbnail for that video. Check that video out. I'll try to put a card right here so you can click to that if you want the long version. If you want the quick version, I'm going to solder this up, and that's what this video is about. Alright, so the first things first, we have our 4S LiPo, so we know what size bounce plug. So here's the bounce plug. We're going to start off with it first, okay? So we need to have a female for the male 4S LiPo. So it's 5 pin, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pins. And we can plug that in. Don't stick those leads into your fingers while you're, because they're live right now. Don't touch anything. But we're just trying to find polarity on the plug. We want to make sure that we have the correct polarity on this plug. What I like to do is go ahead and just color that in, because sometimes when you get to working on things, you got all these pieces and parts in front of you, you forget. And the other thing is, in the field, it makes it really nice and convenient. So when you go to plug this in, you can see that you have the polarity correct and you're not trying to mash it in backwards, because those pins will touch. If you push this in backwards, the pins will touch. So that way it helps in the field for quick reference. So now that I have that one painted, I'm going to do 2 of these. So I'm going to be doing a 6 and an 8 extension cord. So we know that's the polarity direction. So we're just going to paint him. Now previously, on this plug here, we used this, a 35 volt 470 microfarad, and that's fine to go, up to a 6S LiPo. You can do 1,000, but look at the size of it. I mean, I don't think it's necessary. But if you're doing 6S, I would have minimum 35 volts. So that's what that looks like. Now we're doing 4S. We're doing 16 volts. Remember, there's not a whole lot of current going through this. We're only powering the GoPro. So we're going to do a 470 25 volt. So this should be enough shock absorption for this application. And also it should be big enough still to maintain that, that grippy feel that we want. So when we unplug it, it doesn't break off inside or whatever, and it also gives us a good feeling, and it's large enough to go into the battery strap to hold it down. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna end up making 2 of these for 4S. Okay, if you're doing 6S, you want to use at least one of these. I don't think this is necessary. I've seen a lot of people put, I don't know, I don't think it's necessary. If you're powering your quadcopter, cleaning voltage up 6S, yeah, totally understand. 50 volts actually. So anyway, enough about that. These are the 2 we're going to use. 25 volt, 470 microfarad. Okay, and then inside the package, we're going to have a Matec Beck. So what this is going to do is this is going to take our voltage down. Okay, it's going to take our 16.8 volts of a 4S LiPo, and it's going to take it down to 9 volts. This regulator here is a 5 or 9 volt out. They do make a 12 volt out, so don't get those 2 mistaken. The other one is a 5 and a 12. It's a lot larger than this one. Actually, I have one. Let me grab it real quick. So there's the size difference there on the other side. I just recommend using the 9 volt, and then we'll power the Beck, the Beta FPV Beck that's inside here will be powered from this back. So there's 9 volts. So we're gonna step the voltage of the LiPo down 1 step to 9 volt, and then another step down to 5 volt. The 5 volt will go in the same place that the 5 volt from your USB port, that's where this goes to. Okay, this backboard is not plugged into the same port as what your battery's plugged in, which is 4.2. So there's some more information about that in that other video, but we're going to use the 5 volt, 9 volt, and we're going to bridge. There's 2 little bridge pads. I'll show you that in a second. You have to bridge these together to make this 9 volts. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and wire this up. I'm going to zoom in for you. I'm going to bring the camera in. We're going to zoom in on this while I solder this together so that you can kind of see up close what I'm doing. So that's what we need to do another one. So that's the Naked GoPro 8 for my friend. So we'll put that aside. This video here, we're going to do the Naked GoPro 6. All right, which we've already done one of them, and he just really, really likes it. So I'm going to unsolder this from this one that got smashed up and torn all up from a crash. So I'm going to take this power lead off of this, and then I'll start from there. So let me go ahead and do that real quick. All right, so we have our battery lead ready to go. I'm just going to clean my tip up a little bit. If you're unfamiliar how to solder wires, 30 gauge wires, to a flight controller or other components, I have a video on that. I'll try to put a little card up here for you. We're going to go ahead and just take this power lead off, so you kind of see where it's soldered on there. And then this part here is all basically trash. I could probably reutilize that capacitor because it seems to be okay. I'll check the capacitance on it later, but because this is for a friend of mine, I don't want to chance it. I want to use a new one. So we're going to go ahead and set that aside. And then we'll go ahead and we're going to grab our back. Okay, and then right here you can see the 2 little pads. Can you see the separation between them? We have to bridge that to make it 9 volts. If you don't bridge that, then you're going to output 5 volts. Let me zoom in a little bit more for you. I'm just going to grab a little bit of flux paste, and I'm going to put just a little coating on there. Doesn't have to be much, but those pads will corrode, and they won't accept the solder very well, and that's really annoying when you're trying to do stuff. So a little bit of flux on there will go a long way in it, and it's just real quick. That's it. So we bridge the pad. So now this will output 9 volts. Now let's turn this over, and we're ready to solder our leads to it. Okay, let me get this turned around so you can read this easy. Okay, so we have our 5 volt, 9 volt out, and we have our ground, and then our 630 in. So our LiPo voltage, our 6 to 30 in, will come from the battery lead. So what we're going to do is we're going to solder in here, so the out, that's what's going to go to our GoPro plug. Okay, and then obviously they have black and red. So the black goes on ground and the red goes on 5 volt, 9 volt. And in this case, it's 9 volt because we bridged the pad, right? So let's kind of solder that in. First thing we want to do, just want to go ahead and tin all these. I'm just going to put just a little layer here. I mean, it's hardly even able to see it. Clean our tip off, make sure that's nice and clean. Just going to put a little ball of solder on each one. I put solder on the tip of my soldering iron, and by the way, I'm at 275. I'm at 275 degrees Celsius. So it's not too long to clean that. So I just take and put a little bit on my tip, and then I touch the component real quick to put my solder on. And it's really a misconception. Don't put giant like heaving balls of solder on there. You only need enough solder to cover the wires that you're connecting it to. All right, first one we're going to do is the furthest one away from me, which is the 5 volt or 9 volt. In our case, it is 9 volt. Okay. Now we just need to have a couple wires come around from the to the battery leads. I'm not exactly sure how long I want to make those yet, so I'm just going to grab some wire here. I just got 2 little pieces, and this is like 28 gauge or 26 gauge, and we're just going to take a little bit of soldering paste, put on the end there. So each wire I dipped in the soldering paste, and then we'll go ahead and tin those wires up. Okay, and just because we crash and it's a quadcopter and all that, I'm just going to give them a little tug. I'm not going to go side to side because then you fray and break. Just give them a little tug, but nothing crazy where you yank the pad off. But that ensures that you don't have any cold solder joints where this will just pop off while you're flying, and that'll be a bummer, especially if you're being paid to do it. And then we have everything there, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom out here so we can take a good look at what we need to do. All right, so our connector here, we know that that side is ground. We know that that side is going to be our hot side. We don't need the pins in the center, okay? The pins in the center are bouncing ports, so that's each one of these center line pins is representing 4.2 volts. In our case, we want all of them together, so in a series circuit, they're going to be from ground, which is here, all the way up to 16.8 volts on a 4S LiPo. If you're unsure how to measure LiPo voltage, I made a video here, you can check it out. But these pins, you want to definitely make sure you know where they went in the trash. Okay, get this hooked up here, and we'll tin these up. Now here's the thing, when you're tinning this up, you kind of want to be careful. These come in a kit. I buy these kits, so when I run low, I just buy another one because it's cheap enough. And then also, you can make your own plugs. The pins and everything are in this kit. So it's kind of nice to have on hand. If you're unfamiliar how to use this, I have a video on how to use that tool. But we got our pins set up here. And what we want to do is basically we want to solder in our capacitor. So we're going to put our capacitor in here, and then on the capacitor there's a ground side and there's a hot side. So on the negative side, what we want to do is we want to bring our capacitor all the way up to, let me see if I can get this in the camera right. Okay, so our capacitor is going to come all the way up as far as we can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold these leads over. So I'll have one go that way and one go that way, and then it'll be pressed into the plastic, so no issues with it shorting out or having any problems. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and put this on top of here. We'll shrink tube this to here, and that'll give us our little plug. Okay, so let me go ahead and get some solder on the end here. We don't need that much heat, so I'm going to turn it down to 200 degrees Celsius. Because the only thing we're doing is soldering onto these leads here. So I want to take a little bit of flux paste and garner that end a little bit. Okay. Now I'm going to take a pair of jeweler's pliers, like so, and I'm going to bend this end over to match that. Okay. All right, so you can see how that fits on there. Okay. And now we're going to cut the wire here, and then we need to put a little insulation on that. Okay. So we're going to cut that, and we're going to put just a little bit of silicone on the other side of that, because that's the power line. All right, so I'm kind of rambling on here. I'm working on trying to do fitment and stuff, so I just sped it up. I didn't want to cut it out because there was a couple movements I made that I thought might be interesting to you, but I sped this up quite a bit, so I didn't want to bore you with too much details. Got everything put together there, so that's the hot side is done. Take this out. We're going to flip it over. Yeah, this is quite a bit easier to do when you're not filming. All right, so we have our ground in play here. Let's make sure our tip is clean. Got some solder. Lay that on there. Bridge all those things together quickly. If you sit too long on that, you'll melt that pin in this case. So this bounce plug, you'll actually melt the bounce plug so bad that pin will just fall out. So you don't want to do that. All right, so now our ground wire is connected, our hot wire is connected. We're insulated here on the body just in case this comes in contact with the ground. And now what I want to do is I want to attach this beck to the capacitor and this. Yes, it is easier to just go ahead and put a wire from this to all of this, but so many times I've seen that these wires fray and they touch each other and it sparks off a fire, and it ain't no good. So this is the way I like to do it. So I had to redo my SD card. I ran on a spectator space. Alright, so we have our pad of adhesive. Okay. So now that's ready to go on. We have all of our stuff set up here. Don't want to touch it. And we'll go ahead and push that down, squish it around a little bit. So now that is insulated, and we have plenty of space. Now I need to take these wires here, and I'm just going to wrap them over around, and then now they'll come out right here. Why do I want to do that? Because I want a strain relief. I don't want those wires coming directly off of the beck. I want them to come off right here. So with the shrink tubing on here, it will keep that from being pulled away. So that's the end of it. I just have to shrink tube it now and test it. So before I shrink tube, I'm going to go ahead and test it. Let me zoom out. We have our meter here, and we do a continuity check. If you don't know how to do a continuity check with a meter, I got a video right here. If you hear that, it's a bad thing. You don't want to hear that. So we're going to put our ground on the ground and our hot on the other side. Now you hear that quick beep? Okay, that's that capacitor in there charging up. Okay, the continuity has a little voltage check to it, and that should be charged up. So it's still charged up. Here, let me show you what I'm talking about. So I'll go ahead and take that little bit of voltage away. So when you first do your continuity check on this, it'll beep real quick until the system is initiated, basically. So now I'm touching that. If I hear that, I'm done. I gotta redo it. Something's wrong. But see, there's no continuity, so we're good to plug a LiPo into this, which I'm gonna do now. This LiPo is at storage voltage, so it should be fine. and we know our grounds are grounds, and when this wire comes off of that, and we know that the supply in is here going to the connector. So we have our red wire on our connector is the hot, and the black wire on this end is the ground. So all we're going to do is rotate this around. So now you can see how nice it is to have that painted, and then plug that in. So now I want to get things that, I'm not shrink wrapped here, so I want to get things that are conductive out of the picture, because now I'm going to measure this. I want to make sure this is a nice clean 9-volt signal coming out of here. There's 2 little pins in there. Those are kind of tough to get to, so I'm going to measure off of the back and off of the pin. So I might be tough to film this, because I definitely don't want to cross over and burn this up. So I'm going to do a voltage. So we're going to go down to check the voltage. See if I get a, does that make any difference having a screen on? Okay, so we're just going to touch the ground right here, and then we're going to come in and touch the hot on this pin here. Okay, we're at 915, so we have 9 volts, 0.15 coming out of this beck, and it looks to be nice and clean. It's not fluctuating or dropping out, or it's just a nice steady clean 9 volts. So that's good. And the polarity is correct. So also with the voltage, we check the polarity. You know what? Let me bring that back. Just if you know what I'm talking about, move on. But some people might not understand what I'm saying here. Let me go back. Anyway, I don't want to go too fast. All right, so the voltage is on. So when you touch your leads together on something, and I touch ground and I touch hot. See that little minus symbol? If you're touching ground and hot and that minus symbol's on, then your polarity's backwards. Okay, so I go to this pin and I put my lead. Let me pull this insulation back a little bit. Okay, you see that? Let me zoom in here. I don't think you can see that. See how the hot is on the outside and the ground is in the middle, and then the yellow would be over here on the far side? I took the yellow out because it caused too many issues in the past. So now you can see that the hot is on the far outside. My test leads, the tips of my test leads are too big for me to go in here and try to get both of them at the same time. I would be worried that if I tried to go in here with my test leads, I would touch them together and short them out. So that's why I'm putting my ground out here. You can put your ground here too, right here. But for this demonstration, for me trying to film this for you, let me zoom back out. Let me get that glare off that screen for you. Is that better? So now, when I touch the ground here, and I touch the hot here, I'm going to go ahead and get my pin set in. Okay? So now I touch here. See how that minus symbol went away? I got 915. See, I take that off. If I were to switch my leads around and I get that negative symbol, that means that my polarity's backwards, and you plug this in your GoPro, you're going to fry it. Because you did something wrong here, or you've got it pinned wrong here. So make sure that your polarity's correct too. So not only are you supplying a nice 9-volt out, but you're also supplying it correctly. You know what I mean? The ground and the hot. So this is ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and shrink tube this now. I'm going to show that part, because I think there's something I might be doing differently than other people. So here's the shrink tubing I'm using. I get this off Amazon. And the reason why I use this one for stuff like this is because it's really thick, and the adhesive property inside the tubing is really strong. Whew, that's hot and sticky. Okay. If you don't have calluses, you ain't gonna be able to do that. So now I'm just going to make sure that this is nicely, formed. It didn't deform it while we heated that up. And now we got a little package here we can get our mitts on and pull on and yank, and we're not going to be ripping little wires. We're not going to be pulling the pins out of our connector. It can take a crash as long as the propeller doesn't get up in here and destroy what we did. So that should be nice. Normally, what you also can do, which I probably should have done, but since I'm filming, I'm kind of rushing ahead of myself. If you have that kit, you can put the other part in here when you shrink tube it so that you don't deform it as easy, which I didn't worry about it, I guess, too much. So that's it. This one's done, and now the adhesive in here, I want to just make sure that that's really good. And with the heat gun, it's hard to get. I don't want to heat the whole thing up too much, but I just want to heat this spot up right here, and then push that down. So now the adhesion inside that shrink tubing has caused this strain relief. So now when this wire gets pulled or tugged, it's not going to rip off in here and cause a short. Okay, so we're nice and neat there. This one's done. So this is ready to go. We're plug this baby in, and this is going to create a nice 9-volt out to our naked GoPro. And that has the beta FPV BEC in it that will supply from 9 volts to the BEC, which will give 5 volts to the GoPro, normally where your USB port is going in. That BEC board does not put the voltage into where your battery goes. Don't want to get into that discussion right now in this video, but hey, there you go. I'll go ahead and plug the GoPro in real quick here and make sure everything's still good to go. Alright, so we're ready to power up the GoPro. Try to get some of this stuff out of the way here. Okay, so we have our connector. We've already checked polarity. We already checked to make sure that 9 volt is coming out correctly from this connector. Okay, so if you're looking at the connector, let me zoom in because you might need to know that. Alright, so here's our connector. See this end here is the clip that goes into that side. So right here on this side of the naked GoPro, the beta FPV BEC is that clip. Okay, so it goes in like this. The pin, this pin right here is hot. The middle is ground, and the upper one here used to be a yellow wire. Okay, so 9 volt hot and ground going into the GoPro. Hopefully that helps. Okay, let me zoom back out. All right, so we've made sure our polarity is correct. We made sure that we have 9 volt and clean 9 volts coming out. Nothing's heating up or smoking or acting strange. Go ahead and plug this in. See isn't that nice? Now that you got that painted underneath that shrink tubing, makes it so nice and easy. Plug this in, should hear a little snap. If you put your ground in first, you hear a little snap. If you put your hot in first, it doesn't snap as much, okay? But that's that capacitor charging full up. The bigger the capacitance, the larger the snap, okay? And we got our strain relief because we were smart and put that underneath the shrink tubing, okay? And then we go ahead and pop this into the GoPro. I want you to pay attention right here. There should be a little green blink. The GoPro should blink one. Come on. Now come on. Okay. It worried me because this hasn't been tested yet. Had a nasty crash. So we got one blink. That means that the GoPro main board knows that there's power being applied to it. Same as if you plugged your USB port in. So the 5 volts has been applied to the main board. We supplied 9 volts to the BEC that supplies 5 volts to the board. I hope you understand that. Inside here is an aftermarket BEC. We're not powering directly to the GoPro main board. Like I said, if you got questions, I got a longer video. So we're going to hold down on the modes tab. You should see if I cover that up a little bit from the light. Hold down for just a second. Okay, so we get our blink, and then we push on record. So now we're recording. So let me give give him something to look at here, something for him to envy. All right, so should be all recording. Everything should be fine. We just go ahead and click on here, and that will save the recording and unplug our, here you go, buddy. GoPro 6 naked. The best way, I think, to power it, and he agreed, and that's the way we're doing it. So, hey, you know what? If this video helped you out, give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Man, if you hated it, you give me a thumbs down. It all works. Enjoy the breeze.